Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hello. We are talking about if calorie deficits actually work in light of PCOS, insulin resistance, diabetes, hypothyroidism. What if you have high cortisol? Does that mean a calorie deficit is not going to work for you? So I hear from clients all the time that they tried a calorie deficit or they've tried that, it doesn't work. They've tried tracking, they've tried every diet, and it doesn't work, right? And I think we see a lot of dialogue online that validates that experience and says, well, if you have insulin resistance or high cortisol, or if you have high inflammation, then a calorie deficit is not going to work for you. And here's the thing. A calorie deficit is confirmed if you lose weight. So that's how we know you have been in a calorie deficit or not getting adequate energy intake, as we call it in the dietitian world. If you are losing weight, you are by definition not meeting your energy requirements, which means you're not getting enough calories. Now, this is just how physics works, how thermodynamics works. You cannot create matter from nothing, and energy is never lost or gained, energy is never destroyed. It is only transferred. So things can lose energy and gain energy, but that means that another system has gained the energy. So what that means is the circle of life. You eat the food gets digested, and part of it might exit as matter. Another part of it gets transferred into actual energy impulses that create our muscular system and our nervous system, and our sodium potassium channels in all of our cells is how we transfer electrical impulses cell to cell. So you need energy, ATP, and things for your mitochondria, right, in your cell to transfer electrical impulses. If you have extra energy, it is stored as fat. When you don't have extra energy, your body is able to pull from your fat stores. Now, this energy intake and use happens over a period of time. It's not really one day, one meal, or even 1 week. So that's why you can gain 8 pounds in 1 week and lose 5 pounds the next week, and you gain and you lose, because we have these fluctuations, usually with water. So our actual fat stores, it is going to take a lot longer than a week of consistent calorie deficit in order to be losing weight, versus if you are in a point of, you've just digested food and now your carbohydrates are holding on to more water, and then you just worked out, so your muscles are holding on to more water. Well, you start a diet, you drop all of your carbs, you sweat a whole bunch that week, you take a detox supplement that is really a laxative in disguise, and now you're 10 pounds lighter. Well, okay, that's not going to be a linear thing. So then you're surprised that the next week after the detox ends, or you're eating really clean still, but again, different circumstance, different week, and you're up in weight again. So if you don't understand the mechanisms of these fluctuations and how a calorie deficit is really working, it can be easy to dismiss it when you can see, like, well, I'm trying really hard, I'm eating really well, I'm in quote unquote a calorie deficit, but I'm not seeing consistent weight loss. So the first thing is you're not going to see consistent weight loss unless you account for those fluctuations. The second thing is you are thinking you're in a calorie deficit because of all the things that you're doing, but either it's not going to be consistent enough long enough and you make it really restrictive. So you're really only in a calorie deficit 4 days out of the week. The other days you're not, or you end up being in a calorie deficit all day long because you're starving and then you end up overeating at night. And it's not that hard to overeat by 500 to 1,000 calories in like snacks and processed food that is like low volume. It's not a lot of food for like a high amount of calories. So that's why we encourage more whole foods and not having really high processed, candy and snacks, because you can have like a little bag of chips for like a lot of calories, right? But that doesn't mean you have to cut out all of your chips and you can't have anything sweet ever. Like that's where we start to cross over into the line of getting restrictive and obsessive. And that's the number one reason that diets don't work, is because they're unsustainable. Like all of the research across the board, and honestly, anecdotally, just working with hundreds of clients over the past decade, that is the number one reason your diet doesn't work. Because when I ask people, okay, so what have you tried that's worked? Or they just start talking about, well, let's just use keto as an example. I did keto for 2 weeks and it worked really, really well. And I said, okay, so if it worked, what happened? And she goes, well, I lost like 10 pounds that week. And then I said, okay, so carbs hold on to water weight. So I'm thinking, I don't tell her this yet, but I'm thinking in my head, if you cut out your carbs, yeah, that's the first thing to go is a bunch of water weight. And then she said, and then it was like a 2 week, I think she did it for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then it's like a, gradual, or the diet ends, or you just get back to your regular eating habits, whatever it is, you regain the weight. And then you're thinking, oh, shoot, I have to go back to eating keto because that's what worked for that week or 3 weeks or whatever it was. And really, did it work if you gained all the weight back? Like, no, because that's why diets don't work. It's not because, well, it's impossible to lose weight. It's because it's impossible to lose weight that way long enough to sustain the weight loss. So when you look at the research for what people who successfully lose weight and keep it off do, there's a couple of things that they do. I've done an episode on this. I don't remember what it was, but it's one of the first few episodes where they look at, they have a regular life routine. They start to exercise again as part of their regular life. They don't just jump onto the next trendy workout in their living room, or like they go to classes for a couple of weeks and then they stop showing up. Like people will work out for 6 months out of the year, and it's all like the first 6 months, and then the last 6 months they don't work out at all. That is a lot worse than like working out every other month consistently, right? Like if you took every other month off, but like for the month you worked out, 4 or 5 days a week, that would probably be a little bit better, because over the year you've been consistent, versus 6 months of hardcore working out and then 6 months of like hardcore not working out. So I would rather you work out 2 days a week consistently every day of the week, or every day of the week, every week of the year, versus try to work out 7 days a week, because you're probably not going to keep that up. And then when you stop going to the gym, you like stop going to the gym altogether. So I would rather you work out 1 day a week than try to work out 5 days a week. I'm just saying, like, talk yourself down. So a lot of times when these people are like, well, I tried everything, I was doing all these things, and maybe you were, especially for a short amount of time, or while you're doing that, you are actually simultaneously increasing your stress and increasing your appetite, because cardio and certain workouts will increase your appetite, but you don't actually burn as many calories as you think, and you're inaccurate in the way that you're, thinking that you're eating. Or again, like, that's not to call you a liar. That's to say humans are really bad at being like a reliable narrator. You don't know how many calories you're burning unless you are in a lab and they tested your BMR. And then even that every day is going to be different. As you gain muscle, you are going to have a higher BMR that the math equation that's out there does not account for. I burn so many more calories having 25 even pounds of muscle mass on my body more than I did 10 years ago. My BMR is way higher now than it ever was 10 years ago, even though I'm older. It's because I have more muscle mass, so I can handle a lot more calories. So that's another thing that I'll get to is gaining muscle. That's how we do this. I've done an episode on that as well. So when you say that, you've tried everything and you're tracking and you're in a calorie deficit, but you're not losing weight. The first thing is you're not in a calorie deficit if you're not losing weight. But if you're not tracking your weight properly, you probably don't even realize that you are or are not losing weight long enough to keep doing what you're doing. So one thing that I have people do in my Fat Loss Forever program is they weigh themselves every day, especially for the first month or two, just because I want them to realize, like, look at the fluctuations. This is what people get wrong. It's not freaking weigh yourself every day to get obsessed over the scale. And every time it goes up, do something reactive by restricting your calories or going back on your diet or feeling, to hell with it. Let's just binge today because nothing's working. And that's typically the behavior that follows. Now, I have had a few clients be like, okay, I don't do that. I don't binge. I don't go off plan ever. This, that, and the other. Well, guess what? I train them for 4 months and then they disappear on me for like 2 years. So you might not realize that you don't binge, but like you spend these long periods of time where you're not doing anything or you just say to hell with it. And then you gain 10 more pounds. And then we just did for that 4 months, like say that you reduced your calories a little bit because you're tracking and you're working out and you're strength training a little bit, like you're doing all the things that I told you to do. And then you disappear on me for a whole year after those 4 months. Well, those 4 months in a calorie deficit just slowed down your metabolism. Now you're just on this, free for all, whatever. Shoot, I haven't been to the gym much, whatever. And then when you come back to me, now the next time that we try to like put you back in a deficit or you again try a new diet or something like that, your metabolism is even slower and it makes it so that you have to diet on like 800 calories, which is not sustainable and not healthy. And we do not want to do that. So that's what's making it so impossible to lose weight a lot of times because your deficit has to be so low. So what do we do with this? Well, the first thing is we want to regulate your stress hormone. So something that happens a lot with my clients is they will stop worrying about being in a calorie deficit or they stop tracking or they stop dieting. They just kind of let it go a little. And they even might work on some self-love and some body positivity and some self-acceptance and work a little bit more on just being consistent with behaviors and being proud of themselves for actually eating breakfast or actually eating more fiber and having better poops and being able to go for a walk rather than celebrating how many calories you burned by going for the walk. So when you start to just shift your perspective a little bit, that stress hormone goes down and then you start enjoying the behaviors more. So then you start actually doing the behaviors more. It just has this ripple effect versus the people who are resenting going to the gym every single time. It makes it really hard to actually go to the gym, but it also almost puts your body into this more fight or flight response, which is going to increase your appetite and reduce the amount of sleep that you're getting, which increases your appetite the next day, makes it a lot harder to motivate yourself to go to the gym. It's just this ripple effect. And you might white knuckle your way through it for a couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe even a couple of years, and then you crash and burn. And this often happens when women turn a certain age or they have children or they switch jobs or something happens and then they don't realize that it had such a huge impact on activity levels, appetite, all of those things, muscle mass. And they're shocked. You didn't just wake up one day, right? It didn't happen overnight. You know that, but all of a sudden you see a picture and you're like, what? What happened? Well, it's just really hard to actually see yourself objectively, okay? We're really bad narrators. So knowing that, when we are looking at how to actually fix this, we want to be looking at firstly, gaining muscle. That's a really good way to actually increase our BMR so we don't have to dial it down to 800 calories, right? So if we want to increase your BMR, we want to increase the amount of calories your body burns at rest with muscle tissue. And what will happen is if you are in a little bit of a calorie deficit and your muscle is trying to grow because you are eating enough protein and you are lifting weights, now we have muscle protein synthesis, you're growing muscle, and it will take from your fat stores. It will take energy from that because that's what it's for to build that muscle. That's what we call body recomposition. Later on, once you have muscle, it's a lot harder to do that. But I would have to eat like a lot more calories to build more muscle if I wanted to, but I am 25 pounds heavier now than I used to be. I am burning a lot more calories now than I used to be at 32 than I did at 22 because I have more muscle now. Again, that's going to plateau eventually. If I stopped working out right now, in about 5 to 10 years, I will look a little bit different. So we might not realize how our lives change after kids or after a job change or after we just kind of grow up. And I have a lot of clients that will talk to me about like their high school bodies or their high school athletic, abilities or their high school athletic, routine. Like they're literally working out 5 days a week, twice a day. And they're like, well, I don't know what happened. I'm like, well, you're 35, you're not 15, and you haven't done that. You haven't trained like that. So what have you done in the past year? What have you done the past 5 years? And it's surprising how much people like don't realize how much their life changed until they're like talking to me and they're like, oh shoot, I guess it has been a lot longer than I thought. Or, oh, wow, yeah, like I have been really dieting on and off for years because I will work out every New Year for 3 months and then not work out for 9 months. Or I have trouble keeping to it. So I work out for like a couple of weeks here and there, and then I stop and then I pick it up again. But there's no progressive training. There's no intention there. And it's just like jumping around in their living room. So don't be surprised when that's not working. Sorry, there's some tough love. But ultimately, when you are too restrictive on a calorie deficit, you are also affecting your stress levels, you're affecting your stress resilience and your tolerance. And then when you are, working out really, really intensely, and then you're like not realizing you're actually not progressing because you're just like doing a bunch of burpees or something like that, you don't actually build any muscle mass. You are slowing down your metabolism, and then you're increasing your appetite, increasing your stress, increasing your cortisol, all of those things that are bad for PCOS and diabetes and honestly, regular humans. So when you learn to not be so stressed out about it, when you learn to actually like eat breakfast and slowly increase your calories to find your true maintenance, some people have a set point, and anything below that set point, what happens is when your fat cells shrink, your leptin, which tells your brain like how fat you are essentially and how much adipose tissue you have on your body, leptin is going to tell your brain like we're losing fat, which means we're in a calorie deficit, which means we need to increase our appetite and conserve energy. So your body does kind of fight you a little bit, and we have to be aware of that. We have to be objective about it, and it's really hard to do that unless you're being really intentional or really, accurately tracking, which can cross a line into the obsessive behavior, which starts a cycle over again because it's too unsustainable, it's too miserable, and then you don't want to do it anymore. So that's often what happens. I've heard it 100 times over. I really, really have. And really what we want to do is, again, bring our calories up, start eating more regularly, lift weights so that we are gaining muscle, and learn to enjoy lifting weights because you've got to learn how to do it. Increase your steps intentionally, or just make sure you're getting consistent steps. And that doesn't mean it has to be 12,000 steps or even 10,000. 4 to 7 is perfect. If you're only getting about 2,000 steps a day because you have a desk job, then like aiming for 4,000 is probably good for now. And then you can slowly increase it certain weeks, and other weeks don't stress when you're not able to get all of your walks in. And it's a fine line because we have a tendency to just like go for the worst and like feel really shameful about it and feel like we should be doing better and we should be. But like, that is only contributing to the cycle. And that's going to be the hardest thing to break. So like when you stop hating exercise and everything to do with healthy living because you're associating it with shame and guilt and having to burn calories and like your almond mom's trauma because you ate something bad. So now you have to like do cardio after dinner. So your mental state while you do these things are going to affect your body, your behaviors, and your ability to keep up with them, and your stress levels and the like internal things that are happening to your hormones. And a lot of people will say, well, I got put on GLP-1 and then I lost weight. So like it wasn't me. But like a lot of times the GLP-1 or the medication for your thyroid or PCOS or insulin, it will help regulate your blood sugars. Sure. All of those things that are important for healthy metabolism, but it also makes it easier to do the behaviors that you need to be doing to lose weight or to be healthier and more energized and sleep better, which all of those things, again, have a ripple cascading effect on everything else, even on a very subconscious level. So I'm not calling you a liar. I'm not saying like, well, you're not moving enough, exercise more. But like your body has a way of like not fidgeting and not gesturing and conserving energy so that the same movement requires less calories to do because your leptin and everything else is telling your brain like, hey, we're dying, we don't have food, so let's go find food. Like it increases that drive. And you might not realize that until you take a GLP-1, which calms down your glucagon-like peptide 1 is a hormone that tells your brain when to stop eating and like, oh, we're full, we have food, we're chill, cool, you can rest and digest. A lot of people talk about the reduction in food noise in their thoughts. They stop thinking about food as much. And you might not relate to that because you're like, what do you mean? I eat lunch and then I'm not thinking about food until the next time I'm hungry. Well, there's a whole ton of people that are eating and they're still thinking about food, and then they finish eating and they're still thinking about food. So then they're snacking a lot more. They're eating a lot more portions and they don't even realize it. You don't even realize it because yes, it's your hormones telling you to eat more. So if you're saying your hormones are the reason you can't lose weight, yes, because your hormones are making it literally so hard to actually get in a deficit because one, your BMR deficit is like 800 calories because again, your BMR is like maybe only 1,200 or 1,400. So if you want to go into a calorie deficit to lose weight, it needs to be like 300 to 800 calories of a deficit a lot of times. You can't do that for like most people. It's too much. So with your low BMR and then your body also like that's where that can, you stop fidgeting, you stop gesturing. That's part of your BMR because that's not like purposeful exercise, right? So your body slows down in all those ways and it will be like, yeah, we're not going to go work out today. Like you're tired. You're way tired. You need sleep. So then we procrastinate sleep with TVs and we throw off our circadian rhythm even more. And then the next morning, now we're even hungrier because we had a late night snack, and late night snack affects our hormones, affects how we wake up in the morning. Our ghrelin levels, which is what affects our appetite, are going to be increased for certain reasons. Like, yes, it's your hormones, but your hormones are what's affecting your behavior. And it's affecting, again, how your cells are actually metabolizing the energy. Most people don't actually have like a slow, quote unquote, metabolism, but again, they might have a low BMR. It's a little bit different. But anyway, if you are constantly jumping from one thing to the next, you are not able to be consistent over months, over years. This is why we are yo-yoing. The more you yo-yo, the more your body's going to fight you and the higher your set point is going to be because it's like, let's not do that again. Let's keep some extra weight on us so we can survive the next ice age. So you are fighting hundreds of years, millions of years, if not, of evolution, and you're not special in the sense of a calorie deficit doesn't work for you. You just might have a lot harder of a time getting into one and staying into one for lots of different reasons. So I don't know. I hope that's encouraging. It might not have been that encouraging, but gain some muscle, make sure you're eating, work on your sleep, work on your stress, and if you really need some help, DM me or send me an email. Check out my website at kaylamariefitness.com so I can get you in touch with, some resources to help explain this a little bit more or just help give you some encouragement that like, it's not you necessarily, but it is you. You know what I mean? And this should give you some solace and some, I don't know, maybe a little bit of peace as well as some motivation for like feeling a little bit more in control and being able to give yourself some grace in the fact that, again, like it's not just that you're not doing enough. You might be doing too much. and your body is like, no. So then when you like, quote unquote, fall off the wagon, or in the times that you're not even really paying attention and you don't realize how much you're snacking or how little you're sleeping or how little you're actually being consistent with your workouts over the course of a year. So that's where I'll leave you. Again, let's chat, let's email or send me a little message, and I hope this helped. See you next week. Not really. Talk to you next week. There we go. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the no BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at KaylaMarieFitness.com and on Instagram at KaylaMarie_fit. See you next week.